Hey folks, I'm going to record a little bit of a different video here. This is not a market internal review video or necessarily any kind of educational entertainment content. I'm just going to share a trade I took today, why I took it, and kind of what I see. I've had enough questions from folks on social media that it kind of tells me, even though I've tried to do my very best to detail how to use the internals, in retrospect, I don't think it's perhaps translating or something else. I'm not sure, but I thought perhaps it would be useful to skip all the macros, skip all the news, earnings, and data, and just review a trade. And that's it. So that's what I'm attempting to do here. And I hope the aim is that you will learn something about how to use the internals. I think the first hour or so is where most that most people that have been trading for a while, they know that the volatility is mostly the highest within that first hour. So if you can understand what the market is doing and find a high probability low risk trade, then maybe you'll be able to come out with some profits. So it's definitely a thing that I have tried to hone in on with the internals, and I found them incredibly helpful. So without further ado, let's just do a bar by bar replay for the first hour or so. We'll see how it goes for today's market, and I am by no means trying to tell you that um, make it seem as though I don't know what the day already did. I traded this day. It is today. I'm recording it today. It's just to replay the thoughts in my mind that occurred while the price was live. So it always hits a little different when the price is live versus reviewing the chart afterwards. So first thing I noticed this morning was the very obvious daily gap, a little over $3. And the other thing that I noticed was where Tick had hit a low point here. So it hit a low point of about negative 1700. Mercy is showing similar in that we are most likely oversold, unless we're just going to sell off hardcore from here, but that's not as probable. And then the next thing, obviously, with the first standard deviation on TWAP from Monday, that range is somewhere up here. And if you have watched my market internal review videos, you will know that it's just something that typically occurs, is that price will come into this area from the previous day, the first standard deviation zone, before something else. It rejects and comes back down. It accepts, reclaims, finds support at or buyers at previous TWAP, and then launches, even higher. So the other thing I noticed is we gap down. That's the low. The current bar closed in the gap. We also have a weekly gap, and the midpoint is really close. Another thing for my other videos, I love 50% of all kinds of things. I build ranges off of, I think a lot of the market, anybody that's traded understands drawing like fibs, looking for 50%. You could do it with gaps, all kinds of things. So this gap zone indicator I wrote, it's very simple. It really just plots the last closing price with the open price for whatever session time frame you choose. So in my case, I have daily for one of them, and for this one, I have weekly. So the grayish, bluish colored is a weekly gap, and as the name would indicate here, or the label, this is the 1 day daily gap zone. So the other thing I noticed, previous day's low price, the lowest price that we had from Monday, is just slightly above current price. So the next thing I do, and I guess these charts are not going to be set to replay, and that's all right. Next thing I'm looking at is where is the add? Where is the New York advancement versus decline? And I can see that it was at negative 1800, and the very first bar already closed and broke us back above this 1500 point. So plus 1500, minus 1500. I don't know why. They're very important. I've watched them so much. You could see on Monday here, the ad just sat and rejected 1500 positive every time. So with that being said, I'm watching. I want to see what is ad going to do, and obviously none of that data is there yet. So, and then I also am looking at the volume. The volume oftentimes starts out in the middle. If you've not noticed the videos from market internal reviews, and the volt is almost always basically at the 0 point. Now, oftentimes, if it's at 0 point, you'll see it move pretty quick in one direction or another. So I still come and look at this, even though it's at 0 or near there. There's still interesting information. So where is volume going? Is it rising? Is it going into the advancing stocks, or is it concentrating in the decline? Is it declining or ascending? So in this case, I'm seeing the first bar is a strong close up. So those are two things I'm watching. Ooh, I got that on a little too fast. Okay, so that's all right because there wasn't really much else going on just yet. So I'm watching MIT indicator here, and I'm seeing higher low prices on tick. I'm also seeing a trend showing a potential imbalance, meaning price can move. And I'm also seeing that this Mercy strong close below the oversold area is starting to rise as well. And I think sometimes tick is really moving Mercy around. The other thing I noticed as I'm watching price here, I'm looking to see how are we going to do with previous day low. Very important to see how we're doing with previous day low. Also, we're still at the lows, but we're still inside the daily gap zone. Okay. And now this area here is that first standard deviation zone. I'm seeing that paint out in real time here now. That is going to be at least something I'm considering is going to be potentially a magnet for price. That being said, I wait for confirmation on MIT at the very least. And things I'm going to look for are stronger bull ticks. We haven't had any bull tick breaks over 500 yet. And I'm also going to continue to watch ad and volt. So the other thing I'm noticing the whole time this is playing out is the ad is now over 0, and so is volt. So if we go look at, what time is this? 9:46. So by 9:46, we come look at this. Okay, now ad is over 0. Same thing with volt. 9:46. All right. Now, the thing that neither of these two indicators have done yet is they have not come back close to 0 here and given that a second look. I like to watch and wait for that retest, a little bounce. What are we going to do? Are we accepting this or are we rejecting it? So I kind of trade it like I don't trade it, but I kind of treat it like a stock. I read the price action of the indicator, and I mean, that is the whole New York Stock Exchange. So what's it doing? I come back here, right? So I'm going to hopefully, I can do that. All right. So going forward, just bar by bar, real slow. So the other things I'm noticing is we got this big engulf. Took out not quite 3 whole candles here. Bearish though, right back to the TWAP price. And these bands are really constricted because there's no strong tick. And that's the other thing. There's no strong tick here. We're not seeing really anything happening. We're just watching chop. But it's still important information. So this bearish gulf here, and then we got this big wick here. And so clearly there's something going on. Okay, this next bar, very interesting. It is at the weekly gap midpoint here. So that is a strong sit on your hands and just see what's going to happen with this. If I'm thinking about it, where market currently is, at and volt are over zero. So I tend to try to have a little bit of a bullish kind of outlook, upside outlook, until otherwise proven that that's incorrect. So at 952, where is add? So 952, the add is still above zero, and we're just kind of consolidating in here. So I could kind of box that stuff in. So since that initial break, we've kind of built this little area. So I'm going to still watch, right? So I'm watching. Okay, well, interesting. Now we're still at the daily or the weekly gap midpoint. The other thing, though, too, I didn't mention here is we did lose the daily gap. So this right here could fake you out or could be a short opportunity. If you're going to short here, I would much rather see add and volt below zero, where they've already crossed either above zero and broken back down and had a little bit of a retest. So if I can move my mouse here. So something like this, where we come back and do that. Okay, but we haven't done that. Or we never went there, over zero that is, and we rejected zero. So we haven't had any of that, and we can still see the accumulation, although really small and tiny because it's early in the day yet, is still on the upside. It's not downside. Oh, and volume, same thing. So 952, we're still just kind of in that range. No crossback below zero. No retests. All right, so looking at that, now we're going to watch and wait. Okay, so another a bull candle, but we're right on the weekly gap midpoint and still below daily gap low. What's the next candle doing? Okay, we're just barely closing right here. Okay, on the daily gap, we're back in, but just barely. Okay, and that's 10 o'clock. So 10 o'clock, where are we at? All right, 10 o'clock, we're back up here. We're kind of in this area. Okay. So another candle. All right, now notice the other thing is we're still seeing bear tick breaking below negative 500, but we're still hanging out right here at this weekly gap midpoint. So clearly there's a base here, and the average closures for tick are flat. Mercy has actually crossed the RSI signal has crossed over the average. If I, it doesn't really matter. And if I buy 100 shares here, my risk would be a new low on the day. Okay. And that was my stop loss today. The target for me was previous day's TWAP, potentially higher. Now there were things that I would trim out on prior to receiving or prior to arriving at that point. Daily gap midpoint. You could even trim some off here. Previous day low, previous TWAP, break of the gap. If we made it, this high, that's fine as well. But the general structure here for where I'm entering my trade, my risk is very tight. And that is mainly because we're not over TWAP. We've relatively low tick activity at all. The Mercy is red. We've got trend kind of signaling almost nothing. And then, I'm really just going off of add and volt. At this point, the New York Stock Exchange could easily just start dumping. So that was my thoughts as far as why it felt a little less clean compared to a lot of the other trades I take with the internals. But knowing that price often comes back to previous days' first standard deviation zone, knowing that we've traded the majority over the inside low of the daily gap, we bounced the weekly gap midpoint that was all enough for me to go ahead and put risk on. And again, the stop loss very tight. So by 10:04, again, the odd is here, almost right at zero. The low of this is 45, so that's close enough. So we get in there. Okay, we hit previous day low. Now, I think it was right here. Oops, doesn't really matter, but right here at daily gap mid took some off, and at that point we're already at a 3.5 to 1 trade. Okay. Now the other thing is, it might look insane to think price could come back up here, but I mean, look what's happened, right? We haven't really done anything on the day. And I mean, especially now, if we reclaim previous day low, that gives me even more conviction to hold my trade longer. The low of this range was another trim spot. Okay, now look at the hesitation as we hit this zone. Okay, Doji still got another close underneath. There's a lot of hesitation in these candles, but I'm gonna get rid of that. You guys get the idea. Look at all these wicks, right? They're right around the daily gap midpoint. So now this becomes, in my mind, this kind of becomes a new trade. And I have to ask myself, where would my new stop loss be if I were entering right here? Now you might say, well, that's nuts to enter here. But, given that we've already moved however much this was from our entry point, right? Let's just say here where this current close is, $1.77. But if you trade SPY, it can move $5. It's not. So this could be, in theory, 1/5 of the move. It's kind of how I look at things, right? Conservative, you could say 1/4 or 1/3. Either way, that's still at least another $2. Do we have room for that? Yes, we absolutely do. All the way to previous day's high, even $2 just at the high of this range here. Okay, so then now this is my new support area. My new stop loss is going to be somewhere around previous day low, maybe weekly gap high, somewhere in this area. Great. So now we have a very strong close in the zone here, and it is stop at a daily TWAP level, but so far so good, right? This close here, testing about 50% of this candle. Again, I like 50% of things. We're still in this zone now, this purple zone. I could almost turn off the other zones, but I'll leave them on. Okay, so now what happens, right? Well, these two candles basically engulf this one almost to the cent, but we're still above daily gap mid. So to me, this is my break, and now I'm looking for a retest. Next thing, where are the internals? Where's the New York Stock Exchange? We had this incredibly bull tick finally, right? We cleared almost 900. We've got a bullish trend on the price and the volume of the stock exchange. Mercy just barely starting to show a little bit of green here, and the average trend is rising. So that's good. Now I'm going to go look at, while a trend is showing price imbalance, price can move, average tick closures are starting to decline. What's going on, right? Let's go look. Actually, let's see here. So at this point, 1026, we'll go look at add. So, clearly the zero test, our anticipatory entry was fantastic. And now we're kind of resting on the SMAs here. And we are having a little bit of a pullback as far as the accumulation goes. Where's the volume at? Okay. This is really important here is volume. I've mentioned this in my internal review videos. Volume is often the more kind of important signal for where things should be moving towards from a sentiment standpoint. Are we going to be rising? Are we going to be falling? Look to the volume of the New York Stock Exchange. I don't necessarily believe in volume of one particular stock or volume of one particular index because it's too easy to manipulate that, dark pools and whatnot. But when it comes to the entire market, yes, I will use volume. So looking at this is very strong volume. The accumulation is seeing a little bit of a pullback, but there's no reason for me to consider exiting my position because I'm still way away from my entry. I'm still close to my new support, and I've got no reason. So I'm going to hold. I am expecting price to come back into this zone very soon. I don't want to see the tick closures on average. I don't want to see them start to come back down here. If I start to see a trend flip on MIT, if I start to see everything start to decline, then I might go ahead and make a different decision. Okay, so here we go, right? Another really strong close right into this zone. So we had our break. We're still seeing support at the mid of this daily gap, and now we're breaking back in to the zone. Now I want to see previous day mid break. I want to see a break through that, and I want to start seeing something with previous day's TWAP price. All right, so boom, boom. We got two really insane candles. We see another bullish tick break over 500, and now we're at 700 advancement. Volume still green. Everything's basically green across the board. I do use VIX, and I do look at PCN or puts versus calls. These are more high level, longer term things. These four here are the ones that I look at intraday, bar by bar. So just, I guess, heads up on why I'm not talking about these two here. So okay, so trend is still at 0.6, which is really good for upside. And then look at average closures on tick, where we basically are sitting right around 0 and potentially could start to bounce back up this way. Great. So this is now at 1036. Now, mind you, this would be a really fantastic trade for most people. And this is a 30-minute trade. And we have captured $2, almost $3, $2.75 we'll call it, of SPY's movement for the day. We've only had, let's say, about half of that with a little bit of consolidation, a little over half, 18 minutes. So these are just metrics I consider for future trades, right? What kind of trades should I expect? How long am I going to have to sit in a winning trade or a losing trade? What kind of movement can I expect to grab? Is there any consolidation periods? That kind of thing. So anyways, 1036. Let's go look at ADD. Where is ADD at 1036? Great. So cloud break. These are just 8 and 20 SMAs if you don't watch my other videos. So now I kind of want to make sure that we're not making any lower lows on the ADD. So I want to make sure we're not making any lower lows on the ADD, and I want to make sure that we are going to start making higher highs. And my main area of focus for ADD, which might sound really weird, is the 200 SMA. So this is the 200 SMA. There's typically a reaction. So at this point, obviously, it's still way up here, right? If I scroll add back, so it's way up here, but we can pretty easily tell that it is, pointed that way. So I'm expecting that price will collide with the 200 SMA. And by price, I mean the advancement of the New York Stock Exchange. It's going to impact us at some point, and then watch for a reaction. That's all I do. So we'll head back over here on SPY. So at this point, I trim some off here because we've got, no, I totally forgot about the paper trade. I'm just going to close it out. It doesn't really matter. Trim some off here because this is previous day's TWAP price. So at this point, as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off. This is just free money. It's a little rider or runner, to ride out the rest of this move. And looking at this, so this might not come out really well on the charts. Let's see, can I make this a little more impactful here? All right, so this little in formation, this little pattern here, this in pattern, I love seeing price do that. It's a strong continuation. I see this here, I see this here. So at some point, I'm going to expect price to continue. Boom. I did not script that. I don't remember bar by bar in retrospect, but that's pretty funny. So yeah, we got the exact same thing. Now I'm going to expect price to break higher. Okay, they're saying no, it's not scripted. So it doesn't. All right, it rejects TWAP. I know eventually, because I traded today, that we do break above. Main thing is I want to make sure we're not losing this zone. This zone is effectively kind of my new support, and this doesn't pan out watching for average tick to stay above zero. We're right back near zero again. Okay, so now we're back right at mid price from yesterday. Lots of struggle. I know what time of day it is also. The closer we get to noon, the lame, the more lame the price action. Okay, so we're back up here again. Previous TWAP. Let's break through this time. Nope. Okay, so at this point, right, we have quite a long, this has got to be about an hour. Okay, nope. That's about half an hour, I suppose, and that's at 11. The thing is, these kinds of setups, while they are tedious, I don't enjoy holding on to them. I have no shame admitting that. I always just try to watch the internals. If the internals are still reading bullish, I will do my very best to try to hold on. I'm still human like everyone else, so it doesn't always work out. But so here, right, we did break this high. We made a new high, and everything is still advancing. 200 is coming down, but we're still looking good. So again, there's no reason, at least for me, right? I've taken risk off. I have trimmed at the midpoint. I trimmed low at the break here, the previous day low. Definitely trimmed here. So now it's just a free runner. What can we get out of it? And you don't have to trade that way, obviously. It's just I'm breaking down what I did today. So there we go. We finally get a temporary, right? This bar is just at close, but intra bar, we did have a break over previous day's TWAP and right down almost to the cent, the gap high, the daily gap high right there. So now it's just about, are we going to see anything else? And also the average tick closures did start to ascend. It just took much longer than I anticipated. Mercy still on the rise. We have low divergence in the RSIs. The market internal RSI indicator I wrote, as well as SPY's own RSI. One thing I did notice was with that low divergence, I kind of turned this on just to kind of see where that occurred. So where we had a lot of chop, that's where that divergence kind of spiked back up. Just something I look at. It's not like something you got to do. But anyways, so looking to see what are we going to do here, right? Oh, well, look at that. We break over the daily gap high. And at this point, if there's any more momentum, this high here for this range and previous day high, can we achieve that? And I also want to just go and point out, that this effectively is one big trend. We had one big trend that started all the way from the extreme low of tick and the ad and basically all the other internals. So these days can happen And I notice when I look around, these kinds of days definitely chop people up because they come in, they see this $3 gap down, and they think, oh, short time, it's time to go short. And it's just a nasty bias. So the internals are my bias. I try very little, or I try very hard to have little to no bias whatsoever when I trade. If I do come into the day with a bias and the internals tell me I'm wrong, I'll throw that bias right in the trash because I don't care. I don't care about a bias. I don't care about knowing what's going to happen. I only care about my ability to read the internals intraday, bar by bar, to make a decision where hopefully I make some money. That's it. Anyways, rant over. Okay, so we're at daily gap high here. We broke out. What do you think I'm expecting here? Well, I'm going to expect maybe something like this. I just look for these little ends, and I'm just watching for that kind of candle pattern. And honestly, I just expect that everywhere. If we get a breakout, okay, well, I want to see a little end pop and, continue on. And anytime I see that not work and we get a reversal down, well, then it's time to get out. So by this point, 11:18, where is the odd? Well, it's continuing to make higher highs. So there's, I hate to sound like a broken record, but there's really not any reason to get out. Why would I close my runner here? Again, at this point, I've had multiple trims. I'm in literally from the bottom of the day. It's the best entry you can get on a trending upside move, is the bottom. So it's risk free at this point. So now I'm watching for acceptance. I'm looking for support here, right? So at this point, I mean, for sure, my support is the low of this range. It did start down here, and I've moved it up as we've gone. Daily low, daily mid gap, daily gap mid rather, and so now I'm looking to see, is the previous TWAP price going to be my new support? So we're consolidating around here. That's looking good for a support, and we're getting that little in formation. Boom, right there. Look at that. So now previous TWAP is my support. Okay. What is the odd doing at 11:34? Let's go look. Wow, it made a higher high. Rinse and repeat. And at this point, 200 SMA, so still in its downtrend. Price still on its uptrend. So we're getting really close to those two meeting. And at this point, I have to kind of address, the elephant in the room is that we're really close to a previous day's high price. And we see an immense amount of supply here, resistance, whatever you want to call it, reversals. I don't really care either way how you want to interpret it. It's your business, but you cannot deny that price declined multiple times from here. So watching that, I'm going to be quite aggressive at this point with my support area, where I'm expecting if price retraces back to those points and starts to close below, that perhaps we're going to start to see maybe some kind of down move, or at least just fizzle out into consolidation, and we don't really go anywhere else for the rest of the day. The other thing I do is I also watch the other indices. So let's see here. By 11:34, and I did tweet this out today. I definitely mentioned this in my market internal review videos. I watch all four indices. I watched the New York Composite on TradingView. It's the ticker symbol is NYA, but I am laser focused on the Russell. and there's many reasons for that. But by 11:34, I'm seeing we've got a monthly TWAP level here. We also have a monthly gap up here. So that monthly gap midpoint price is almost too perfect at 176.5, and we got the daily gap or monthly gap low here at 176.3. And so, by 11:30, 38, whatever I said, 34, doesn't really matter. I'm watching this, right? What is the Russ going to do? Because if I look at all the other indices, we can go look by 11. We'll just call it 11:38. The Dow is pretty close to previous daily high, and we've got September TWAP here, and the Qs. Where are the Qs at? So if you're not reviewing all the indices, you don't have to, but you will be surprised at times. And by surprise, I mean you'll get stopped out of trades. You'll close trades out early, where maybe you could have extracted, who knows how much more profit with, as long as you can use a trailing stop. So, Qs is monthly TWAP, first standard deviation high here. We got a monthly TWAP level that we first rejected almost to the cent, and we got a nice little break. There's kind of that. If I can find my tool, there's kind of that in pattern that I like to find. Of course, we don't see that yet at 11:38, but I'm seeing that strong breakout. But we're actually still, Qs are still in the daily gap. That was one thing that I had noted. I don't know if I noted it on Twitter or not, but at that point, I'm thinking, okay, well, Qs is not even out of its daily gap yet. Obviously, the previous day high is still there, and we already know what SPY is doing, so I'm going to review that again. Okay, so that's 11:38. Okay, so we're sitting there, right? So what is there anything that's going to hold us back? So again, I'm focusing mostly on Russ, and by 11:38, I'm noticing monthly TWAP level here. I want to see the Russ hold this level, and at that point, then my target will be this monthly gap area. And if anything upside is going to continue, well, then we have to break into this monthly gap area, and then we have to continue. So let's go ahead and continue on. All right, so here's previous day high. You can see we wicked it almost right on, and fell back. Now, the other thing I'm noticing is we've had an immense amount of bull tick breaks up high. Definitely some extremes. We had an extreme closure, which just basically means 800 or beyond. We actually closed at 800 or beyond, not just a high, and then we pull back intra candle. This is a closure, but then we have another even higher high on the tick as SPY tried to break into previous day high territory. And now we've got this wick here on close. So I'm keeping my support here, and that is 11:42. So I come back and look at Russ. By 11:42, we're still right on that monthly TWAP level. So no big deal. I'm going to stay in. Advancement is now at 1,000. So that is 1,000 stocks advancing via price for the New York Composite. The other thing I am starting to see, though, is that Mercy is starting to show potential overbought, which is nuts considering that at open it was showing oversold. Okay, but I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to pump my own brands or anything like that, but this indicator is actually really powerful. I like it almost just as much as MIT. If it had this and a couple other things, maybe I would just use this exclusively. But anyways, so I am starting to pay more attention, right? If we are oversold or overbought, then, I'm going to expect to be out of this trade and probably done for the day because it's a long trade. At this point, I'm barely watching it. I'm just kind of coming every now and then and checking it and moving my stops. But at this point, I've caught $4 of price movement on SPY, but it's taken almost 2 hours. So that's a long trade. You might have seen it there just for a moment. My Mercy indicator is starting to indicate a potential squeeze. So the squeezes are a thing. I don't know why they are, but it's something that I have detected when I developed this indicator, where the combined secret sauce RSI formula with custom weightings I came up with, when it aligns to the RSI of whatever you're charting, in this case SPY, uh, for whatever reason, those squeeze signals are really impactful. There's usually some kind of price movement. Again, I don't know why that is, but it's also the point where there is the lowest divergence. So everything is in lockstep at that point, and then there's like full alignment. So I see that flash. It doesn't close that way, so I'm still in the trade. And by this point, it's almost noon, not quite yet. Okay, boom. So here we have a previous day high break at 1148. Where's the Russ? 1148. We're just right over this monthly TWAP level. So a couple things I'm noting. IWM also had its own Mercy squeeze, and it's not really making the same kind of movement as SPY is. So it's a little suspicious. Still really healthy trend though. Advancement still rising. Volume trend is now at 0.47. That's very low. We're going to fast forward through here. So at this point, by the way, my support is now kind of at the top of this zone. I think, keep it kind of below these wicks just in case, because at this point, if we really squeeze, sometimes these squeezes are just continuation, but with some kind of freak momentum surge where like SPY will have a $10 day. It has happened. So I'm trying to just keep my little runner in, and if price is going to do something insane like that, I would hate to get stopped out after such a beautiful catch here, and then miss literally double the move I've already caught. It happens, and that's okay. But I'm trying to manage it tight, but not so tight that potentially miss out on one of those insane opportunities. So watching this, we're at 12 o'clock here, and where is the Russ? So Russ, 12 o'clock, we're still at this monthly TWAP area. So I'm going to stay in. Okay, how much higher can we go? So I'm noticing we've got these previous day ranges. This is the second deviation high level. So far we cannot break that. I'm also noticing, we did clear previous day's high, and we're now kind of in this weird zone. This is even above previous day's high from Friday. This would be like Thursday's high price from last week. So pretty big deal to be at this point. And we're still over the monthly TWAP level. So I'm just going to fast forward here. So 1222, right? We get to 1222. We're real close. Okay, actually, yeah, this is 1222. Okay, so 1222, we have another extreme break on tick. Everything just incredibly bullish. So at this point, I'm going to put my stop right here. And then the next thing I kind of notice is we've got a high here on tick, or Mercy rather. This is a lot more than tick. We got a lower high, but then here on SPY, we've got like a higher high situation. These divergences are very much like just the standard RSI divergences that some traders will use from just the standard RSI indicator. And the same still applies here, I found, which I did not plan that. It's kind of hilarious. But also, you can do the same thing on MIT. We have a slightly lower high on tick breaks here. So that's about as raw as you can get for a divergence. Right, another squeeze. So at this point, I'm not moving my stop anymore. At this point, I'm just gonna hold this until effectively in my opinion, I'm watching for Russ to basically reject this area, and I mean that's what happens. So we do break up a little bit higher. The other exciting thing that I saw is a breakdown of the first standard deviation high. When I see this, I like to see full trend flip down here on MIT for price and volume. If I see that, then that's a short opportunity. And it actually paid out really nice. I took a small short off Russ actually, and then the contract was kind of garbage, but they don't have 0 days every day for Russ. But yeah, this is a standard short breakdown, retest, break again kind of entry for TWAP trading, and I would actually be targeting a best case scenario. I would be targeting the lower deviation, first deviation here, trims absolutely for sure at TWAP, and then perhaps, depending on what happens here, even stop out. And I just keep my risk really tight because it's, one, the trend is still really strong on the upside here, even though we have a trend flip. The add and volt are still on the bullish side, but seeing the average take closures come below 0, that's what I want to see, right? And my long trade that I had literally essentially from early morning lows, it definitely stopped out somewhere around here. And I don't even care about the trade anymore because it's on autopilot. And at this point, I'm in the short side on that dump here off of the first standard deviation high. We lose previous day high, which is good for short side. And then now I'm watching to make sure that the price continues to retrace back into this zone. You see all of this price right here. This was a previous support area, and now I'm expecting it to break down, which we do finally have. And then also this candle here, 1256. Where are we at here with that on the add? So sorry, I got to jump around here a little bit. So 1256. So 1256. We already tested 200 SMA. We break back down, and then right here 1256. So look, we're starting to break back into this old structure I had traced out, and doing it with quite some energy here. And the accumulation actually signaled a potential reversal right here around 1238, which by 1238 we were actually looking to get short here based on the first standard deviation. So that's why this TWAP indicator is so powerful, because it's based off the internals. It's based off the way the internals move, which is key little secret sauce there, and that's why this jaggediness is actually a feature and not a bug, like VWAP so smooth. And because of that, if you're like a pixel precise trader like I am, I want those jagged movements because that's information to me. Anyways, so what happens, right? Well, we break all the way back down to current day TWAP price, and ironically, that is now aligned with previous day's TWAP price, and then we kind of just bounce around here for a while. If memory serves, we do break down. Yep, we break down even further, and I don't remember. I actually do not remember if we hit first standard deviation low. I think we break back over TWAP. Okay, so there it was. That would be enough for me to definitely get out. Or if nothing else, for my shorts, I'm now looking to stay essentially somewhere. If I can move my mouse here, somewhere below the previous TWAP, current TWAP, like this area here. There's just so much here. The daily gap high. I don't want to see price come back over that. The early signals to start, really paying attention to the trade would be previous day's mid-range price. If we break back over like we did here, definitely start to manage the trade. If you've got some, 0-day high gamma type risk on the table. And as far as I recall, this trade definitely cut out after a reversal. Yeah, so I would be out here. But in a nutshell, that was basically my trading day. It was absolutely insane. It was a lot of fun. And, basically just doing what I've showed you here. This is how I use the internals intraday. These are kind of all the things I look at. Now, you don't need to use Mercy, or if you like a little less info overload, you do not have to use MIT. You can do the same kinds of things with Mercy that you do with MIT. I like them for different reasons. MIT is very nuanced with tick reading. That's where I've given much of the display to the tick reading, versus Mercy is a little bit smoother with the data, but also still precise in that it responds to the minute movements of the internals as fast as possible, while still kind of being overall more trendy than MIT is. You have to kind of understand a little bit more about add and vold if you use MIT solely versus MIT. But the daily gaps also are very important. Daily gap zones, weekly gap zones, I would encourage you to watch those. And then, previous days range for TWAP, very important in my opinion. You can probably get away with using that, honestly, just on its own. So, I mean, where we actually bounced was, yes, weekly gap midpoint, but we also, this was third deviation low from yesterday's price from TWAP over here. So we had that little breakdown. We opened actually right on it, and then that's where we ripped. And we almost did a complete retracement of yesterday's range to almost made it to third deviation high. That's going to be it, folks. Just like I said, I kind of wanted to review the trade. This is not really a market internal review or anything like that. Just wanted to give folks a little bit more insight to how I read this and why I have assembled all these indicators how I have. I hope you found this insightful. As always, thanks for watching and happy trading.